What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. We've reached a little bit of the calm before the storm portion of the offseason, I guess. It's right before the start of the season. There's not a ton going on. I think over the course of this next week, of course, you're going to have Thursday Night Football, Tampa Bay versus Dallas, which is going to be a ton of fun. I think it's definitely going to be worth keeping an eye on both the Saints and the Packers and their injury reports this week, specifically with Zadarius Smith. But with about a week to go, before the Packers take on the Saints, it's going to be a little bit quiet for the next couple days. So I figure, especially on this holiday weekend, I would do something maybe just a little bit more fun. And I wanted to kind of go through and just as a fun exercise, go through my 32 power rankings for this upcoming season. Rank every team from 32 to 1 and how I kind of rank them at this point. It doesn't necessarily mean how they're going to finish, but where I kind of expect them or see them at this point in time, I should say. So let's start. I'm going to go from bottom to the top. Obviously, I'm not going to make this a 45-minute podcast, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly, try to spend a little bit more time on the top 10. But let's start with number 32, none other than the Houston Texans, an absolute dumpster fire of a franchise right now. Speaking of going 45 minutes, I could easily, and I mean easily, talk for the next 45 minutes about the decisions that the Houston Texans have made over the course of the last few seasons. Of course, Deshaun Watson's situation does not make this any better. And then how they've built this roster during this offseason has been an absolute nightmare. If they're not the worst team in the NFL, honestly, the only thing the Texans could do worse at this point is actually be like the second or third worst team this upcoming season so they don't get that number one pick overall. That would be the only thing. They should easily be the worst team, only they could screw it up enough where maybe they're not and actually don't get the number one pick to make things that much worse. It is an awful franchise right now, and they come in at number 32. Number 31 is the New York Jets. Now, Jets and Texans in two different spots, right? Even though they're 31 and 32, at least the Jets pick Zach Wilson. They have some faith that they maybe found their future quarterback. I think Robert Saleh is a very good head coach. I think this team is just lacking overall talent, and that's something that's just going to have to come with time. I like the fact, again, that I think they're heading in the right direction with the quarterback and the head coach, but their best player, arguably, Carl Lawson, who they get in the offseason, out for the season. I just don't think they have enough to compete at a high level. I don't think the AFC East is going to be that great, but I think they're going to be down towards the bottom of the league, and I have them at number 31 as of right now. Number 30, who you could easily make an argument for number 31, maybe even number 32, but I really like Houston in that spot, is the Detroit Lions. And this is another team, and we kind of went through it the other day. They just haven't drafted well. They've had a ton of top draft picks. They finally get, a potentially amazing player in Penei Sewell, and they move him out of position, which he has struggled with that move to right tackle so far. Not exactly sure about the trade for Jared Goff. They just don't, TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift, Jeff Okudah. They've got some players that could turn into good players over time, but there's no player on this roster right now you can point to. What player on offense or defense for the Packers this season on the Detroit Lions are you like, man, we've got to spend extra time game planning for this guy? There's just not. And because of that, they're a bad team. And I have them at number 30 on my list. Number 29 is the Cincinnati Bengals. And man, Joe Burrow was, such a great story. And then he, comes out, has his ups and downs as a rookie, out for the season. They don't have the offensive line around him. They get Jamar Chase. He's had his ups and downs in preseason. This is another team that just lacks overall talent. I really hope Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can put it together and have a really fun season. T. Higgins, another really fun player, but I just don't think they have the offensive line. They certainly don't have the talent on defense needed. That's why they're at number 29 on my list. Number 28, the Denver Broncos. This is a team, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, as the rumors were floating all offseason. To me, they're a top 5 team with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. That's the difference that Aaron Rodgers makes. Without Aaron Rodgers, they're 28. Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, just neither of them are good enough, and that's ultimately going to be their kryptonite, their Achilles heel. I think they've got good pass rushers. I think they have good corners. I think they have good linebackers. I think they have a very good offensive line. I think they've got good wide receivers. I think they have every piece that they need. They just don't have the quarterback, and I think that's ultimately what's going to ruin their season. Number 27, New York Giants. Just not a huge believer in Joe Judge, Daniel Jones. I think they're going to need a rebuild at some point. I think they're going to need a new general manager. Saquon Barkley coming back will be fun. I like the signing of Kenny Galladay, but I just don't see this being a playoff team this upcoming season, even in a bad NFC East. Number 26 is a team I am lower on than most. That is the Miami Dolphins. I'm not a big Tua believer. I think that they're going to have some struggles along the offensive line, which is going to hurt him even more. I think Jalen Waddle could be really fun, but I don't know. Overall, this is a team that has exceeded my expectations the last couple seasons. I thought they'd be much worse the last two. So I don't know. Maybe the third time's a charm, I guess, or maybe they'll exceed my expectations again. But right now, I think Tua is the big X factor. If he can come out and play well, they have a real chance. If not, they're going to be towards the bottom of the league. That's why I have them right now at number 26. Number 25, Chicago Bears. This is an offensive line that can't protect, and Andy Dalton at quarterback. And I think Justin Fields along that offensive line is not the right thing to do at this time. I actually think they're probably right in at least starting with Andy Dalton. They've got to get that offensive line playing at a better level. I don't know what else. Like, their defense is good but aging, and I just don't see this team as any sort of threat, certainly to the Packers, but in the NFC North as well. Number 24, another team I might be a little lower on than most. That's the New Orleans Saints. We'll get obviously a great look at them in week 1 against the Packers. I think the hit from Drew Brees to Jameis Winston is going to be a big hit for them. I don't think they have the receivers without Michael Thomas. I just think this is a team that, while they have, Alvin Kamara, I don't think they have the weapons overall that they need. Even with Michael Thomas, I don't think Kamara and Thomas is enough. Sean Payton's a great offensive mind. They do have some great defenders. Cameron Jordan, certainly on that list. And then, of course, you've got Marcus Davenport, Demario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore. They've got some talent there, but I think they're going to have to lean on their defense. I think they're going to have to lean on their special teams and hope that they get enough from Winston without him turning the ball over. This is Winston's probably his last chance as a true starting quarterback. He needs to take advantage of it. Number 23, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm a little bit higher on them. I think their offensive line is going to be much better. I think their defensive line is going to be much better. They were so snake-bitten a season ago with injuries. Jalen Hurts, probably not there yet, but he's also just he tends to be better in games than he is just as an overall quarterback. He's a gamer. He finds ways to make plays, and I think they're going to be a little bit better than most people expect, I should say. Number 22, Carolina Panthers. Sam Darnold's the big question mark here. I really like Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. I think they've got some really fun defenders in Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, JC Horn, Hassan Reddick. I think they've got a decent team. I think Matt Rule is a good coach. I just question how far Sam Darnold can get them this upcoming season. Number 21, Atlanta Falcons. I really like the matchup, or I guess the combination of new coach Arthur Smith with Matt Ryan. I think that has an opportunity to revitalize Matt Ryan's career a little bit. Outside of that, Grady Jarrett, very good defensive lineman. They've got a couple of good, offensive linemen. They lose Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley certainly ready to take that next step. I don't think they have enough weapons, and this team could end up even lower, but I do have some trust in Arthur Smith, and again, I think him and Matt Ryan are going to form a really good duo. I don't think that the ceiling is that high on that team. Number 20, a team I'm higher on than most, that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know teams are pointing to the preseason, or people are pointing to the preseason saying this is a team that struggled. I don't think they really showed what they're really going to do in the regular season. I think Urban Meyer, even though I did not like that hire at all, I don't think he's going to make a great NFL coach. I do think he's going to bring some semblance of just stability to that team, which I think sometimes is a young team that can really help. I think Trevor Lawrence, I go back to RG3 as a rookie. Sometimes you just get a boost from a rookie quarterback. I think RG3 was a great example of that in Washington. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to provide that. I actually think they're a sneaky last playoff team, like a number 7 seed in the AFC as a potential playoff team. I'm slightly more bullish on the Jaguars than most. Number 19, the Raiders. This is a team that I think is actually a mess. John Gruden, I think, is a nightmare as a coach. And I know when McCarthy was on the hot seat, people were saying Gruden's a nightmare as a coach. And I think he all of a sudden weasels his way into some of the personnel decisions. I feel bad for Mike Mayock because I think, ultimately he's got to do what Gruden wants. I just think this team is a Jekyll and Hyde team. Derek Carr's not the guy. I think they have enough talent to compete. I don't think they have the right organizational structure to compete or be anything, close to a solid playoff team. Number 18, New England Patriots. I like Mac Jones better than most people. I loved him a lot coming out. I think Bill Belichick is good enough to get this team performing at a level. I think they had a lot of guys opt out last year. Some of those guys certainly coming back this year. I think it's going to be a better team. How much better will remain to be seen, but I really like Mac Jones. I don't think he's going to, be gangbusters this upcoming year as a rookie, but I think he's still going to be a really good quarterback long term, and I think he's going to be good enough this season to have them at least competitive. Number 17, Minnesota Vikings. So no team in the top half of the league for me in the NFC North besides Green Bay. Vikings 17, Bears 25, Lions 30. I love Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins doesn't do it for me. Their offensive line is going to be hit and miss. I do think their run defenders and Michael Pierce as well as Dalvin Tomlinson could really cause issues for teams trying to run the ball inside. But I don't think they have the secondary, at least the corners. I just think this is going to be a team that struggles, more of like a 500 football team. The Colts at 16, they bring in Carson Wentz. This team just feels snake bit already this season. There's always one team like that. It seems like the Colts up until this point. We'll see if that continues. But I like the roster. I like the overall organizational structure. It just some tea leaves right now for the Colts don't sound that great with all the injuries they've already suffered. The Washington football team is at number 15. They have my favorite unit, group of players of any in the league in their defensive line, or I guess front four, if you want to say. Chase Young, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Matt Ioannidis, Tim Settle. I love that group. I think they're going to be a dominant group up front. And then Antonio Gibson, of course, at running back, I think is going to bring a new dynamic. I think he was still learning the position last year. I think he's going to break out this upcoming season. Number 15, Dallas Cowboys. I think getting Dak Prescott back is going to be huge. And then, of course, CeeDee Lamb, I think, is ready to break out as well. So I think their offense is going to be much improved from a season ago. We'll see if Mike McCarthy's up to snuff. Number 13 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have major concerns over Ben Roethlisberger, but I think Najee Harris is going to add a much-needed element to that offense and maybe take some of that pressure off Ben Roethlisberger. Number 12 is the Tennessee Titans. Really like their offensive line. I think Julio Jones is going to bring a new dynamic, and I can't wait to see that Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry trio, along with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. I'm interested to see how they do without Arthur Smith as calling the plays, but I think this is a Tennessee team that's still going to be pretty darn good this upcoming season. San Francisco 49ers at 11. I think the quarterback position still remains to be seen what they're going to get out of it. Is it Garoppolo? Is it Trey Lance? But Juszczyk and Kittle just open up everything for Kyle Shanahan. If those two can stay healthy, of course, Nick Bosa along the defensive line opens up everything for their defense along with Fred Warner. This team is still a lot of talent. It's just what do they get out of their quarterback position and what's their ceiling? And that ceiling is really dependent upon what they get from that quarterback position. Number 9 is the Seattle Seahawks. This is based mostly upon Russell Wilson. I still think they've got some issues along their offensive line, although I do think it's improved. I don't think they have all of the top end defenders, especially in the front seven. They still got Bobby Wagner, but he's certainly aging. But I think they need some better pass rushers. They lose Shaq Griffin as a corner. I just think this team has a lot of questions, but I have a lot of faith in Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and that offense. I think Gerald Everett's going to be a really nice signing for them at tight end. I think they're going to put up points, but I just think their lack of overall offensive line and defense is going to make him so that they're not a true Super Bowl contender. Number 8 is the Chargers, and that's a team I have a much higher feel for than I think a lot of people do. I think Herbert's the real deal. I think getting Rashawn Slater to fill that left tackle and Corey Linsley to fill in at center, like those are two massive additions along the offensive line that I think is going to make that offense much better. I think Brandon Staley is going to bring a lot to that defense. And I just think, getting Derwin James back healthy, I think things are trending in the right direction for the Chargers. And I really like their prospects for this upcoming season. The Ravens are 7. This is a team that's like kind of the opposite of some of the teams I mentioned earlier. I love the organizational structure. I think they have good coaching. I think they've got good general management. I think they know how to build a team. But I do think this team is lacking some overall things. I don't think their pass rush is going to be that great. I think their receivers, although, Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, certainly bring some dynamic playmaking. I think they're still lacking overall in weapons on that offense. They were so good a couple of years back with their 3 tight end sets, and they just lost the tight ends and haven't been able to kind of replicate what they did a couple seasons ago. It's a big season for Lamar Jackson to see just what he can do. He's obviously already won MVP, great quarterback, but can he bring them to that next level, get him to a Super Bowl and beyond? I think that remains to be seen. Number 6 is the Rams. I love the idea of Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford this upcoming season. It's one of the top storylines. I can't wait to see what they're able to accomplish together. Of course, you still have Ramsey and Donald. They lose their defensive coaching staff, so I think that's going to be worth keeping an eye on. Cam Akers already has the injury. Still think there's some question marks here, but I mean, when you've got Ramsey and Donald on the defensive side, those are just 2 dominant players. You got McVay calling plays. Now they have a real quarterback there and not Jared Goff. I think you still have to think of them as a true threat in the NFC. Number 5, another team I really like, and that's the Cleveland Browns. I love their offensive line. Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller at right guard, and then Conklin at right tackle. I think is one of the best offensive lines in the league, which is going to provide valuable time for Baker Mayfield, and of course one of the best 1-2 punch at running back with Kareem Hunt, and certainly Chubb at running backs. You've got good wide receivers, great tight ends. You have 3 tight ends there that are all very talented. Myles Garrett at edge rusher. They bring in Jadeveon Clowney. I think this is just a really, really good football team. And then had 2 of my favorite picks in all of the draft, and Greg Newsome in the first round, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in the second round. Love this team. I think they're easily worthy of being a top 5 team. Number 4 is the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen really seems to be coming into his own. Certainly did even, last year. I think he looked great in that preseason game. Yes, it's against backups, but it's not who he was playing. It's just some of the throws he was making across his body. He's a heck of a football player. Love Stephon Diggs. I think really what this comes down to, they spent 3 high-end draft picks in the last few seasons. Ed Oliver, Russo, and then AJ Epinesa in the last 3 seasons along the defensive line. I think those 3, and can they step up and get pressure on the opposing quarterback, especially if they get in a matchup with Patrick Mahomes, or maybe even Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson. I think their defensive front, especially that front 4, needs to be better. Those guys are players that need to step up for them to take a jump. Number 3 is your Green Bay Packers. All in, last dance, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones. You know the names, you know the players. I think this team is motivated. I think they're going to do everything in their power and everything they can to win a Super Bowl this season. Maybe no team is as all in as the Packers this upcoming year. We'll see. Right now I have them at 3, but they're definitely in that conversation for one of the top teams in all of football. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, they still have an absolute Madden-esque cheat code on offense with Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and then Travis Kelce. To me, that's all you basically need. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be better than he was a season ago. You got Chris Jones, Honey Badger still on defense, amongst others. This is still a top-end team. What I would probably consider still the favorite to win it all. I think their offensive line needs to be much better, certainly than they were against Tampa in the Super Bowl, but a really, really good football team, certainly worthy of an inclusion in the top 2 here. And then, of course, number 1, Tampa Bay. Not going to take anything away from them after winning the Super Bowl. We'll see if Mr. I don't age myself, Tom Brady, can stay ageless and put together another really impressive season. But they have everything that they need, and they've got doubles and triples of everything they need. I swear, they're a really good football team, and I love their front, their defensive front, which got after the Packers, which got after the Chiefs. Like, they were so dominant, and then they add Joe Tryon with their first round pick this year as well. This is going to be a really tough team once again, and I think you certainly have to put them at number 1 at least as the season begins. That's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.